How's it going, everyone? This is Nothing Excess again with another Baseball Clash video. I'm going through the second half of the tier list that I started. We were talking about pitchers. The latest pitcher of which I talked about was Jimmy, talking about his knuckleball and how about like the only fix he needs is for the knuckleball to not have a tell. We're gonna talk about the rest of these pitchers. First off, I'm gonna start with Nova. We're going right into it. So, listen. I ain't got time to sit around. There's so many pitchers, and we gotta try to cover them somehow. Nova is a fireballer. She gets extremely high velocity at her upper end. She basically is, I think, almost at the max velocity you can get. However, her song selection is what drives her over the top. Her song selection, she features an ability that lets her pick one of 3 songs. The first song raises velocity by 30 and lowers her control by 20, which makes her extremely unreliable in terms of control. Her second ability raises her control by 30 and lowers her velocity by 20, and her last one does no changes. It leaves her stats default. However, it reduces opponents' base running speed by 15%, which is an insane debuff. We're not in a meta where that is extraordinarily useful because most hitters are power hitters, so there's a lot of home run knockers and a lot of people who maybe you'll be able to turn doubles into singles. However, I don't think that's particularly strong. What is pretty interesting is that she has the Garcia selection of like the sinker as a main pitch while also having a pitch that goes down, which is the splitter. Splitter's kind of neat in that it's sort of like a fastball that has a lot of late break. It's very good on Shotaro. I talked about it on Shotaro on how it can be a very useful pitch there. However, a sinker and a splitter overlap is kind of weird because they're both pitches that move down, albeit in different ways. And she doesn't have a fastball, a four-seam fastball with which to trick people when she throws a splitter. Her only breaking ball being a changeup is kind of brutal. If it was a circle change paired with a sinker, you might see a lot more effectiveness out of her, but unfortunately, just the regular changeup is not particularly good. She has maybe one of the most interesting skills in the game, and unfortunately, she has a very bad pitch complement and extremely bad control to go with it. If I were to make this character, I would swap her movement and control. I don't think she needs the movement on her pitches as much. I think she is slightly more interesting as a pitcher with bad movement than she would be as a pitcher with bad control. The spin has to be where it is because otherwise she's just completely and utterly ineffective. She's a fastball thrower. Fastball throwers with bad spin can't survive. She is strictly better Garcia, which, speaking of, hi, it's Garcia. Garcia is a pitcher with no ability. If there's no strikes, well, I mean, he has an ability which is that, like, it will train other players to sit on your first pitch and not swing at it because plus 24 spin on your first pitch is kind of brutal. Not a great time. People who swing at the first pitch against Garcia are a little goofy, TBH. So he kind of is a 2.5 strike pitcher. He has 2.5 strikes that he gets to operate with because one of those half strikes he can kind of get for free. He has a good pitch complement in a four seam and a sinker. Although, with all honesty, I would prefer if he had a four-seamer and a splitter and then a different breaking ball that's not the fork. I think if he had gotten a four-seam splitter, like Shotaro, and then after that he would have gotten something like if not a circle change, at least like kept this curve, then that would have been maybe a more interesting complement of pitches. There's been like this whole thing of like pitchers needed to be like adjusted in the last patch where I think that Garcia actually lost a lot of it in the fork. The fork would have been interesting if he had been four-seamer slash splitter slash fork. It would make him a very up-down pitcher, but that means that all of his pitches basically travel the same plane, and that could be a little bad. There's always a problem with pitchers that only have 3 pitches, is that you end up needing to like figure out where the variety is. Like, how are you gonna make his pitches work better? And like sinker has this like sort of like this less than pattern when you're trying to hit it. Four-seamer just is on the dot, and fork is just up, down. So he still has that problem, but he has it with maybe a pitch that he shouldn't have had. I think the curve might have been better. He might have even been served by throwing a slightly different slot. Otherwise, though, like, he has good stats. He's like just a decent stat block. When he gets maxed out, he's slightly over 200 on everything except spin. Like, he's just all right. He's maybe like one of the easiest pitchers to take to world class if you're just starting and you can get him leveled up. I think that like he's like one of the easiest ones to see success with. And then we have Wade. Wade is a legendary pitcher who doesn't have a lot of control over velocity, but has good movement and a lot of spin. The way that his ability works is that the higher level the opponent, the faster he throws. This would be really cool if he had really good pitches, but he doesn't. Changeup slider is not a useful set of off speed, and he also has a Wade curve, so he's a triple off speed pitch with a two-seamer. A two-seamer in a vacuum like that is not particularly good. The two-seam pitch should be better than it is, but two-seamers are not particularly great. The claim to fame on a two-seamer is that since it has a little bit of wiggle, it should be it should be harder to hit, but in practice it's basically a four-seamer with slight movement, which is not particularly good because the four-seamer is click and send it down, and he doesn't have the velocity to make the two-seamer scary. The Wade curve, however, is a extremely good pitch. If it had any help whatsoever from the rest of his pitches, it would be really good. He doesn't even have a pitch that looks remotely like it, so you're not tricked when you see the Wade curve. And if you train on how to look at the Wade curve, you'll find that like despite it having like when you're batting, it has this sort of curving motion where like the reticle hops a little bit and then it comes down this way. So even though it starts outside, it might clip the outside of your strike zone, and so that's kind of nice. And it has some good like trickery of falling right outside of the strike zone when you don't want it to. So it does have that, but like that's just discipline. That's you giving Wade time to throw some pitches so that you can learn everything he complements. The slider is bad on him. It's just a slider, and regular slider is maybe one of the worst pitches in the game. Everything else is whatever. The only reason he can get away with it is because the fact that his velocity changes depending on who he's facing. It means that it's hard to like remember his timing, because his timing is different for a lot of batters unless you use exactly the same lineup. And like, for example, my lineup's all over. In fact, just at the beginning, it's almost fastest, almost fastest, slower, almost fastest. No, almost slowest, almost fastest, slowest. Right? Like, it's just all over the place. So yeah, he's all right. Going into the C tier. The C tier will go through fast. Erik, pitcher that has a sinker cutter curve. Not sure why they gave him a sinker so that he could have a pitch with a lot of funny movement, and he does have the velocity and spin to make that pitch work. But then his fast pitch is a cutter, and it should have just stayed the four-seamer, because cutter with has little movement as he has doesn't trick anybody. So he probably would have been better with sinker four-seam curve. Decent enough to get you to late, to get you where you need to go. Has a fun ability where the more they foul the pitch off, the higher the spin goes, which makes people who are late to pitches bad, but unfortunately he doesn't have a four-seam fastball anymore, so he can't make you foul things off over and over again. Four-seam fastball and foul fury were like maybe like the combination, which made him actually kind of decent, and now he doesn't have that. Marie is in two slots. If Marie has her sister Rose, she gets also a changeup. She's the only pitcher with 5 pitches, and 2 of those are breaking balls at that case. She has a slider and a changeup. Unfortunately, her control is really bad, and the only way her control can stay at least at normal bad is with Rose. Otherwise, it's extremely bad. So you have to pitch her with Rose, even though you might want a pitcher with like a Matthew, who would take great advantage of that insane velocity. Some people still try. Some people will go full-on YOLO. They'll take their level 14 Marie and pitch him with Matthew. And then, like, it's between you and God at that point, because reacting to her Marie four-seamer when it's at, like, 270 to 280 is actually difficult. And it's, like, one of the few ways that this pitcher is extremely effective. Otherwise, since she has no real movement, her pitches kind of, like, just go really fast and move barely. And also, she has dog shit spin. Her spin is so bad for what she's doing. She should have higher spin. This pitcher is solved by lowering movement, raising spin, and changing the slider for, like, I don't know. Honestly, and this is going to sound insane, give her a splitter. Make her commit that if she wants one breaking ball, it has to be because you played Rose. And then you would be giving her 2-seam cutter, 4-seam splitter. And that would actually probably be really fun to play with. But otherwise, she's She's either okay or really bad. Like, there's nothing in between. Maria. Maria is weird. Maria is one of the few cat pitchers in this game that loves adder. Because her ability is that she increases the throwing ability of everyone on your team. I did pretty successfully. Maria is the pitcher that got me to high levels because her increased throwing ability meant that if you quick throw, if you learn how to quick throw, which is like as soon as your player, your fielder starts to pick up the ball and it's in their hands and it's almost in their hands, like it almost picked it all the way up. If you tap where you're throwing, they immediately chuck it and it like cancels a huge chunk of animation. That's a really strong move, and on Maria, it's great. And on everyone in Maria's team, it's great as long as you use her. She has a lot of movement, but unfortunately, the Maria slider has like kind of like a predictable path. It does because of all that movement. Her changeup's kind of funky, and her fork is interesting. Unfortunately, she doesn't have the velocity to back up the four-seamer to make a lot of these pitches like tunnelable. Like she can't force you to like over focus on something because you can always just be looking like at the screen. You can see, for example, there's a lot of tells on the screen that tell you, for example, oh, if the slider starts here, then it will fall in for a strike around here, and if it doesn't, it'll fall over here. Like if you make like mental notes of parts on the screen of where you should be looking for where a Maria slider starts, you neutralize a Maria slider, and then the fork is a fork, so you just gotta look at it like once or twice and you'll know where it's going. The changeup seems to like slip and slide way more than every other changeup I've seen, which is kind of strange. It just keeps moving even when you don't think it will, and it moves at like a strange pace. I don't know how to explain it. She's interesting, but she's not very good. I wish she was better, honestly. Mueller is a pitcher with an ability that used to be busted as hell because it used to proc all the time. The way it works is that as long as his ability procs, if you try to hit his fast spin ball, right, and his ability procs, like the spin on the ball goes so insanely incredibly high that like everything you hit is a ground ball. It's like Murdoch's ability but random. That means that a lot of people will just throw up on a belligerent changeup in the zone. Just the most belligerent changeup in the zone you'll ever seen, because maybe you hit it right. Maybe let's say you do put your bat on the ball. Maybe you didn't hit it dead on and the spin does all the work for him, but maybe he got the fast spin ball and you see a fireball and you can't do anything to it. Problem is that he gets murdered by Jaeho. If you do this and it Jiro's up on the plate and you throw a belligerent ball thinking his ability will save you, if Jaeho perfects it, he sends it out into the stratosphere, so who cares? He has a good complement of pitches, which is messed up. Two-seam sinker is kind of fun. If only he had the stats to make any of that good. Roger's weird, man. I like Roger on paper. If Roger had better control and an ability that wasn't bad, he'd be strong. But the problem with Roger is that he has honestly like a fun complement of pitches. Curve four-seam changeup is like he's like a quintessential basic pitcher almost. Like he is the poster boy #1 for a reason. And he has Roger two-seam fastball, which moves hella. It moves a lot for a two-seam fastball, and it's an interesting pitch. Unfortunately, despite having decent velocity, decent spin, doesn't really need the movement for the kind of things he's throwing. His control is dog ass, so trying to figure out where you're going to actually put the ball is impossible. And Rage punishes you for doing well. If you do well, then your four-seam doesn't get the upgrade. He should just have an ability that maybe like Erik's, where like the more things happen where like he gets annoyed, his pitches get better. It could be something as goofy as like every time you throw a ball, your next pitch increases speed, which like, yeah, you're going to be throwing balls anyway. So it is definitely like, when you finally do decide to throw a strike, it's going to be messed up. There's so many ways you could take it. You could like almost not touch him and just rework his ability and he might be way better. I wish Roger was good. Roger is interesting. Right now, he's just kind of like near the mid-bottom of his rank. Meiling. Meiling is a pitcher that's very strange. If she strikes you out, she gets an insane raise of spin. It's like she has like maybe like the lowest possible spin, but if she strikes you out once, she gets like above average spin, and if she strikes you out another time, her spin is way better than the best in the game. Unfortunately, she doesn't have great pitches for that. She has extremely not great movement and very low spin on a knuckleball. And the knuckleball is one of those pitches where, like, without the movement stat, it doesn't do anything. It just kind of goes, And, like, yeah, it's moving a little bit, right? It's doing the, But, like, at the same time, because it goes so slow and you can see when it's going to touch the screen, You go, and you just kind of follow it, wah, and you delete it. Not a great pitch if it lands in the zone. Two seam is okay. It's a two seamer. Changeup is extremely whatever. It's a changeup. Some people will throw changeups when they realize that you're bad at hitting off speed, and they'll take advantage of that. But again, with this low spin, everything feels like you're gambling for your life with this pitcher, and that doesn't feel great. I might be undervaluing James. I keep saying that James is kind of whatever, but James, first off, has pretty decent stats. His control is not the worst in the game, which is heavenly good. He therefore does okay work with someone like Jessica, although maybe Matthew on him is better because it gives him even more velocity variance, and he has a decent pitches for like having velocity. And also if someone's in scoring position, so on second and third, then he gets a lot more spin, which is like kind of when you need spin the most. He's not terrible. I might be under ranking him at C. He might be a little bit better than I'm saying. He might be like a low B, high C at least. But the problem is that he has a slider, and slider sucks. The good thing, though, is that because he has okay movement, his slider is a little tricky. He's not bad. I just don't think he's good either. You could get places with James. James could definitely, like, all three common pitchers have ways they can get you to world class and then die. But they can all find ways to do it. Michelle, speaking of, I don't understand Michelle very well because Michelle has a slider and a curve and a four seam and no velocity with which to make them any very scary. But because her control is actually really high, and when she gets very high strikes, she gets even better control. She gets like Jessica built in as long as she can get to a 2-strike count. She's like not bad. I put her at C because I still think her pitches are extremely hittable. But when a good Michelle player is cooking, she feels kind of unhittable. I still just think that her curve sucks. I think it's really easy to know when the curve is going to fall in the zone or not. I think that it's really easy to figure out if the slider is going to fall in the first strike or not. But I think that, like, and I think her four seam is not fast enough to really trick you. But there's times where it looks like the four seam is not falling inside and she can dot it because she has very good control. And with a good catcher that can improve that control, it's even better. And also, she's one of those pitchers that, like, randomly really, like, not randomly, everyone likes Matthew, but, like, she kind of hella likes Matthew. You know what I'm saying? Because it gives her a little bit of that juice that she's missing, and just even 20 velocity, you know, can be something. Still, not a great pitcher. Again, she's in the tier of pitchers of I'll get you to world class, but after that, please forget me. And now let's talk about the dregs. Jaeho. Jaeho has 3 pitches that would be great if his spin wasn't atrocious. His spin is garbage, and his movement's not good enough to support a slider or a fork. So all he's left with is a sinker. So if you know what pitch it's going to be every time, you can just learn to hit it. Because even though he has good control and decent velocity, he has no way to keep the ball in the park. He can hit, though. So good as a replacement in baseball and Clash League. If you need a bat off the bench for pitcher, you put in Jaeho, you swing the bat, and then you hope he gets on base, and you hope he does lots of good things. And then you put in your actual pitcher. Or you like surprise them by like throwing some garbage and then see what happens. Yuna has the thing I mentioned earlier where it's like all her pitches are like on the same plane. So you know wherever the ball reticle starts, it's going to be on that plane. There's no movement. So if you see a pitch here, it's either going to stay here and go fast, slow, or rise and drop. And because of that, she's extremely easy to figure out. I also, if she throws any balls, she loses 30 control. Which sucks. Because you kind of have to throw balls in this game, especially when you're pitching, like, space is dead-ass aligned. Caroline. Caroline has a really good control, but, like, almost nothing to complement it with. Really good, though, in win streak mode. Because perfect control, you start at 2 strikes. So that means that wherever you put the pitch reticle is where the pitch is going. Which means she has perfect control, which means that you can forgive everything else about her stats. Slider 2-seamer, like I said earlier, is like not so bad on James. But also the fork is kind of tricky when you have perfect control. Anytime a pitch can go exactly where you want it to, kind of decent. Caroline, like A tier in full count, bad in anything else. And that's it. That's all of the rest of the pitchers. Obviously, we could talk about Marie again, but I don't want to dump on her. I mean, there's a couple of pitchers here that like are so close to actually being really good that like They won't make good because, I don't know, money, I suppose. But, like, Roger's almost there. Roger needs a skill rework, and he'd be good. Nova needs, like... Nova, given, like, how cool her ability is and how much they hyped her up, should have had the legendary stats that Jimmy does. And no one would have objected, I think. I think if literally all they did was bump her control up by, like... whatever the amount is between her and having Jimmy stats, she'd just be better. Maybe normalizing out the rest of her stats would be interesting too, but just bumping her control would make her so much better. And she needs it. Honestly, everything else about her is cool, but she's not balanced because she's too hittable. She has that problem. Also, I would maybe drop one of these, either the sinker or the splitter, and pick a more complementary pitch. My theory is that you should decide whether she's a sinker pitcher or she's a splitter pitcher. If she's a splitter pitcher, then get her another pitch that works on the same angle, but then give her another one that has side movement. You don't want things to be dead on, up, down, but you don't want it to be that, like, the moment you see movement, you know exactly where the pitch is winding up because she has exactly the same kind of pitch. Honestly, change up at the circle change up, give her more control, like one of the best pitches in the game. Like, actually fun to use. Fern desperately needs... you know what the thing is? Like, I think Fernandez is really easy to hit, but I don't know what to change on him to make him good. I think he's fine. I think he works exactly how he needs to. I think he's one of the more... For how much I hate on Fernandez, he's like a properly designed epic pitcher. Jimmy needs his skill to not proc a visible thing when the knuckle's thrown. He should get to have the curve and the knuckle look a little bit scary between each other. And his decent control and movement are what keeps his two-seamer honest so that he can use it probably thrown as balls to charge up his knuckleballs different features. There's no fixing Jaeho other than trading something for spin. There's no fix for him. I would honestly like give him worse than class movement and raise his spin a little bit and maybe change the slider for something else. If there's any pitcher in the game who I'd be like, please give him something good, I'd be like, dude, change his slider for a curve. Slider is so bad. Also, get rid of the fork. Give him something else. Just save that man. I don't know how I would fix some of these other ones. I would have to think about it some more. Like, Erik is honestly fine on paper. Michelle is honestly fine on paper. And James is honestly fine on paper. Like, they're supposed to just get you to... They're supposed to get you to the prom. And then, unfortunately, you have to find a better date. That's going to be it. Thank you all for watching. Somebody mentioned that I should probably start asking you to like, comment, and subscribe and all that shit. I would appreciate it. I don't mind. There's a little thing at the bottom because I used to stream other games where if you go, you can, you know, donate money directly. Like if you were like trying to do like tips or whatever. If you like this kind of content, I have more kind of things that I'm going to do. I'll probably start streaming again at some point. I do enjoy streaming this game. It's pretty fun. People always come in and talk trash. It's a great time, and I'd rather not just do it in the Discord. Shout outs to the people who go to the people who go on the Facebook and like leave me like the weirdest messages of all time. Thank you so much. You're so delightfully strange. I appreciate each and every one of you. I love that I have like my first hater too. Anyways, look forward to it. Also look forward to Sado doing some cool stuff. We are trying to win in the group of death, and it's difficult, but you know, we've had to make some moves. Hopefully, top-level baseball clash looks really interesting in the near future. Thank you all for watching. I hope you watch the next one. If you have any ideas for what you want to see, let me know in the comments. I want to do just matches, and I also want to do like talking about like different hitters. I don't think I'll do like tier list per position, but I'm gonna start making some shorts of like funny things that happen. Funny things happen to me all the time in this game. I love hitting the ball in one way, and then the ball goes nowhere, and it's like, okay, but the thing says clearly that this ball should be in the next county, and the game was like, but what if, consider this, no. So I might do little compilations of people getting nerfed. If you have funny clips that you want, you could always send them to me if you're on the Discord, Celica XS. I'll look at your clip, and if it's really funny, I'll talk trash about it. I'm thinking about that. Anyway, take care of y'all selves. See you later. Bye-bye.